Live from our headquarters in Redwood City, California. It's great to have all of you guys here. We're going to make sure that everybody can see us on our social. Today is July 3rd, the 3rd of July, and right now, as of now with this live feed, Facebook is a little glitchy, having a few outage problems worldwide. So we are also on our YouTube channel as well, so you can find us on YouTube also if the stream is not working over on the Facebook. So I can just put this link here. I'm going to do this, and so all of you who are watching us over on Facebook, you can just click that link and go over to our YouTube stream. So it's great to have both of those streams available to us. There we go. So they're both on. So I'm going to click over to our YouTube stream, which I believe is going, and it looks like I can see you guys there. And those of you who are used to watching us over on our Facebook page and are kind of forced to migrate over to YouTube, you may have a really great, Brandon's watching it also on the YouTube. I think you guys will have a great experience, so you'll be able to see us there as well. So, you know, it might be a little forced going over to YouTube, but I hope you guys enjoy it. So just to give you guys a little bit of background, I know we gain more and more viewers every week for our live broadcasts, which is awesome. So if you're new to us, welcome. Let me give you a little overview about what happens here on our live broadcasts. We broadcast twice a week on Wednesdays, like right now, and on Fridays for our free tip Fridays. And we do a couple of both of those broadcasts per week. You can always find them archived right here on our YouTube channel under beadshop.com. If you give the broadcast, or if you give our channel a follow, you'll get notifications every time we go live, as well as when we post any video tutorials, which is super helpful. You can also find them on our Facebook page, beadshop.com, and then, most importantly, you can find them on our website at beadshop.com. Some of you have been following along the journey with our brand new, wonderful spick and span website at beadshop.com. We still have a couple of bugs that we're working out, but for the most part, we're super happy with how it works. You can find the broadcasts if you go to the top navigation bar. You'll see live broadcasts. You'll click on them, and then you can click through whichever episode you'd like. And you can see there's a little icon there to click on, and the video will play for you. So there's lots of ways to watch us. So it's great to have you guys here. I also wanted to mention, if you're new to watching us, and the way that we do these tutorials, we have a little bit of chat in the beginning where people are jumping on and saying hi, and I love seeing all of you guys. We have a little bit of community time, and then we get right into the demonstration. So the demonstration, if you're not into the chat, which is totally cool, I totally understand, you want to fast forward maybe about 15 minutes into the broadcast, 10 or 15 minutes. That's usually when the tutorial starts to kick in. You can also, after the fact, go to our website at beadshop.com. Go to the live broadcasts, and you'll see all of the materials listed for that particular project, like, for instance, Janice's wonderful poetry project that we did last week. You can find it all there, and I'm going to go there right now to our website. You can find that poetry project under our project page. You just click on it, and then you'll see it under poetry, and you can click on it, and this one is called specifically Take My Hand. And if you click on that little index photo, you'll see the whole thing. You'll see the video, you'll see the listing of materials, all of that. So we really try and support you after the fact. We also support you with kind of tutorial aid that is unique to beadshop.com. We take the episode and we condense it into what we call episode notes. And Drea takes care of those. So on the, currently, the Take My Hand episode notes, they should be up in the next couple of days. It was a really big project, so it's like Drea writes a term paper a week almost for this. But it has all of the finer points of the tutorial, as well as timestamps where you want to just fast forward and stop and watch, fast forward and stop and watch. So those of you who don't deal with video tutorials that well or don't particularly enjoy them, that's totally cool as well. Go to the project, download the episode notes, and you'll have a really great tutorial helper there as well. And if you have any questions at any time, don't hesitate to reach out to us via email. My email is kate@beadshop.com, or you can email our customer happiness team with Drea on the other side there at info@beadshop.com, and we'll be so happy to help you through any of these projects. We're really very grateful for all of your support of our small business as always. So we really appreciate it. It looks like the Facebook feed is still not great. It's still not really going on, but you can see, I'm going to just put it right back in there, the YouTube link, and you guys can head on over to YouTube. We're going to keep the Facebook stream running so that once it's archived and stuff, there's a place for that stream. So we're just going to let the Facebook stream, and we're going to pay attention to our YouTube stream today. So again, thanks for that. It's great to see everyone here, and it's great that you're all migrating over to our YouTube. So it's great to see all of you all. Today, we are continuing our macrame journey. And before I even talk about that, you can see Janice is over here on our YouTube feed. We've got Geeta also as Biff Maniac over here as well, doing some moderating, I guess is the word I want. And of course, Brandwin is back behind the camera this week. Karen did a wonderful job last week, but Brandwin is back working her camera magic. So that's what we've got. So I'm taking a bracing drink of my coffee, and now let's talk about the project. So the last few weeks, we've done the poetry project with Janice, her Take My Hand project, and then I did my other fun colorway that I did as well, and we talked about mixing the micro Ceylon with the bugle beads and the pearls, all that kind of cool stuff. On Free Tip Friday last week, I had these couple of projects that you guys were playing with, and they just, you guys over on the Bead Table, which is our bead shop group over on Facebook, you guys have been going to town with this already, this flat macrame that I've been doing, and you'll see it a little closer up when we move the camera around. And then today, we're going to kind of wrap up this kind of beginning primer with this really fun, I think, micro macrame project that I'm going to walk you through, because we're all getting ready for Brittany to join us. Not only is she joining us next week with the West County Cuff project that Brandon, I'm going to have you grab because I think it's in Karen's office, but we don't need it yet. But yeah, right, you do it and all. Yeah, and while we're chatting. And so she's coming next week for West County Cuff, which is going to be great. But she's also coming in August for her micro macrame, and she is mixing micro macrame with Janice's Tricks of the Trade in one spectacular piece. I'm so excited. So there are some basics that you're going to need to know, and so we're kind of working it through. So I'm excited. I'm really excited. I'm going to really quickly, I can see that Gita, you're going ahead and linking, which is great. I see over on our YouTube. I'm going to try and, yeah, it seems like your ability to link is kind of funny.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Which I'm not sure why, because I have you as moderator status, and I'm trying to make that happen. Bear with me here just 1 second. I'm going to see if I can make this happen. And then, yep, I've got it. And now I think you're all on here. Oh, here we go. No, it's not blocked. You should be able to, I'm going to try this. To new videos, let's try this. And let me try this, and let me save this. Try it again, Gita. I just updated our settings on there, and let's see if you can link, do any links. Sorry, thank you so much, you guys, for hanging in there with us. Live broadcasts are always super fun.
Especially when Facebook wants to be challenging.
Yes, when Facebook wants to be challenging. So let me get back over here. And let me see here. Yep, Janice, I think you're going to have to do some linking. And Drea, Gita, go ahead and try. I think we should be able to do it, but we'll see. We'll see what works. So sorry. All right. So let's get this show on the road. We'll move this camera around.
You ready?
I'm ready.
All right.
Let's get this. So I'm sorry that I can't do any more from the, let me get this here, from my side to make that happen, but hopefully we're good. There we go. I think all of you all can see that too. We need to be up a little bit.
So
all
right now we
right.
got that. Let's see if we can.
Okay, there we go. Alrighty, perfect.
Okay.
There we go. I think we're good. Alrighty, fantastic. So, yeah, if you guys will just have to work out the linking, and again, sorry about the glitches with Facebook. So today's project, we're going to take a look at this really fun micro macrame. Okay, and here's the project that I did. Okay, and I've got this on the macrame board. Is my let me see where I am.
That's what I'm trying to move.
Okay, we'll move that back.
Move that a little bit.
We'll move that over. We'll move that out of the way, and that out of the way. Perfect.
Everything.
I can move everything over a little bit. Is that better?
Much better.
Okay. And will you show me the screen real quick?
Yeah.
So I can see
Maybe move
where I
that
am.
just a tad.
Okay, over, and let me straighten this sucker out. There we go. I think we're good.
Yeah.
You can see the West County cuff is hanging out here on the side, which we'll look at in a minute. But let me just kind of put it through there. I'm really excited. So let me talk to you a little bit about my journey with this micro macrame, because I'll be honest, it hasn't I mean, I've been doing macrame for a while, right? Like friendship bracelets, when you'd make friendship bracelets in high school or college or whatever, and right, so I did all of that kind of stuff, which was cool. But I think Brandon, remember we did all those friendship bracelets, and
Actually moved.
am I doing it's a little, I'm going to move this back a little bit more towards me. There we go. It looked a little the perspective was a little weird for me.
Yeah, I was trying to get it to, but every
There
time
we
I
go.
did it, the camera would just sink back into.
Yeah, sorry you guys. I really want this to be. But come on now. Let's get this. Sorry you guys. I want to adjust this a little bit more because I'm feeling a little seasick with it. There we go. No doubtedly making you seasick. There we go. I like the looks of that.
Cords.
And the cords we'll go ahead and put up there. But anyway, like I was saying, you know, all this macrame and friendship bracelets and stuff, right? All of that. I've made those, right? And Brandon, you remember when we were in college, right? We had a whole wrist of all of those that we'd make and stuff. But the macrame was kind of being a little difficult for me, sort of. And so there we go. I think that's good. I think we're all right. So I wanted to let you know I was having a little bit of a struggle, but it's better. So I'm going to show you kind of what I've done and kind of how I was conquering it. So this, as I say, this is our finished product right here. Okay, and this one I called Blue Bonnet because, I don't know, it looked that color, that delicious ink blue CKC. I used the 0.5 millimeter Chinese knotting cord for this, okay? It kind of had that blue bonnet color to it, so I don't know, I love it, so that's why I named it Blue Bonnet, because it reminded me of the blue bonnet flowers. And no, I'm not from Texas, and yes, I've only seen them once, but they made a real rousing impression for me, okay? So this was the finished piece, and then, but it went through a few incarnations before it got to here, and I wanted to show you guys some of the incarnations that it went through. So I've got this guy below it, and I thought about first starting, because you can see the closure. What I did here with the closure, I'm going to turn it over so the closures are together. You can see I did Janice's her Trail's End kind of closure where we do, I'll turn it over so you can see it a little bit better, where I did with the leather, we did a figure 8 and then we silk wrapped it and we put a button on the end, which I think looks awesome, looks great. But I started it with this Clio clasp here, okay? And so this was the first one I did. And I liked the pattern and stuff that I was kind of playing around with, and I'll talk a little bit more about this, but I hated the way it looked on this clasp, okay, because when I added the strands on, it just looked super clunky and, as Janice would say, a little too architectural in look, so I scrapped this right off the bat. We do have the Clio clasp a little bit smaller. It's the vertical Clio, and it has two, I opened it up, so I'll just leave it open. It has 2 loops on, okay? So I think that this 2-loop clasp would actually work with this kind of design. Haven't tried it yet. I don't know what it would look like, but I think it would look just fine, okay? So if you wanted to do a clasp using this vertical and maybe using it in a smaller, like the vertical 2 or the vertical 3, won't make it so gigantic with this thing, okay? Because for strands, I used 2, 4, 6, I used 8 strands on this piece here. So I thought, well, 8 strands, I'll use the 4-strand clasp. It was just too big because the threads were a little big for it. And I do like the clasp look as well. I think the clasp looks nicely finished, all that kind of stuff. But you might want to play around with the clasp size. So I put that aside. And you can also see I wanted, and I'm going to bring a couple of my other testers in here. And, you know, I do test the projects. I try and play around with them. I try and, you know, do some learning before I get on the air to you guys. So this was one that I started to play around with as well. So the knot that we're going to be tying is a simple lark's head knot here for the loop like we've done before. And then we use a half hitch tied twice to make the stitch here. Okay, so it's super easy. Okay, so after I played around with this, because I wanted to, I don't know, add some beads into here and kind of make it multi-directional, and I don't know, this is still in progress a little bit. Okay, but then I thought, I know you guys are chiming in already. You're like, this is this is scary. So don't be scared, which is why I didn't put too many beads in this project, okay? We want to focus on the knot, and then we can start to add the beads. Because I really dig how the beads come into this pattern. I really, really like it. But yeah, again, this clasp, not so pretty. But if we're just looking at this portion here, I think it looks nice. So here, this is one also, and you know that I've been playing around with the different macrames and I've been demoing on this giant spool of cotton thread. You'll remember this guy from Friday's broadcast, right? Well, I started to mock it up for today's broadcast as well. And as you can see, I'm going to get this guy out of there for now, for the moment. And I want you to take a look at both of these. This defines the knot a little bit better, and you can see where I was making my lark's head knots and then I went directly into making the bracelet here, and how I had some open thread here that's uncovered. So I changed up that idea a little bit to make everything come together. And I brought all of this together under a flat knot, and I like that look better. So you can kind of see where this mistake is kind of sitting here. Also, these are those half hitches, those single half hitches that are tied twice, and you'll see how I do that. And so you can see I just started to make the piece, right, with these rows. Then I added, these are my practice beads, I added these matubos here, these 2/0 matubos, to kind of see where how these fit. So I put those in, and then I started in this sample. I actually really liked, and I'm going to turn this over, I really like the way that these knots look on the back side of this project as well. Can you see that? So I flipped it over and I tied the knots here. So it goes from back and forth, from the back of the knots to the front of the knots, the back of the knots to the front of the knots. And I kind of wanted to see how the juxtaposition of those two, front and back, looked, which I like. I don't know if I'm totally buying into it yet, but it's interesting. So that was this little kind of practice piece that I did. Okay. Then I was getting down to the wire. So I was like, well, you know what? I better start making this bracelet like I mean it. So I jumped in and I started it out. And so like last week when I showed you how I did this lark's head knot loop here, you can see in Janice's poetry, I'm going to leave this, put this in here. It's a little hard to see because it's with the micro seal on, but she did her loop like we traditionally have been doing our loops around here. Our flat macrame knot, our flat square knot, and it makes a loop that kind of sits in this configuration. It's not flat, it goes sideways here. So when you get your button in, the cord, it kind of sits like this, with the cords kind of sitting up like that. Can you see that? Okay. So with this flat lark's head knot loop, the loop sits flat, and I like it. Okay. So it sits, and I'll turn it around, so everything sits kind of flat here, like this. Okay. So I like the way this looks, and I think I'm going to use this flat lark's head loop, not continuously from now on, but I like having both of these loops in my closure arsenal here. Okay, so the way I started this out, let's go ahead, I'm using, and I'll go over again what I've used. So I'm on the macrame board. I have the large macrame board here, but you can also use the smaller macrame board if you have smaller spaces or whatever. So, but I have the big one here, and I'm working on the back. The flip side has the grid and measurements on it, which I like to work on because it helps me measure, but for the ease of our background today, I have it flipped over to the back. So again, like I said, I use the 0.5 millimeter CKC, okay? You could use the 0.5, you could go up to the 0.8 or down to the 0.4, doesn't matter, okay? But it's gonna make your strands, or your piece bigger, right? The thicker the thread you go, or smaller, the smaller the thread that you go. Okay, so I used ink blue, but use whatever color works for you. Okay, whatever you like. So I cut, let me consult my notes here. I used 6 strands to do my macrame, which means 3 strands doubled over. Okay, so I cut 3 strands at 40 inches, okay, which I'm going to do right now. I hear that there's ring talk. While I'm measuring this, I'll address the ring talk. The fancy ring on my left hand, I didn't get new bling. It's just bling that I don't often wear, and my wedding set used to belong to Chris's beloved mother, who is now passed. But I don't wear it all the time because it's kind of big, which it's lovely. I love it. But, you know, I work with my hands so much that I don't wear it all the time. But last night, and again, thank you so much for all of your kind anniversary wishes, right? So kind of you to wish us such a happy anniversary. Chris and I were both very touched. But I wore it out to dinner, and it's still on my hand, so I didn't take it off. So I'm still wearing it. So it's not new bling, it's just bling that I don't wear all the time. Okay, and then this one here on my right hand, this is one that I've made, and I'll show it to you at the end. There's a little secret on the inside that I'll share with you, but I'll show you at the end of the broadcast. So thanks for noticing. It's not bling that I always wear, but anyway. So I've cut those 40-inch strands, okay, and I have doubled them over, so I've got this double right here, okay, and it's ready to go. Now, just as a reminder, to make that lark's head knot, I'm going to show you how to do that. I start by measuring and doubling this over and finding the middle, and then I go slightly to the left of the middle in my case because I'm going to lark's head to the right. So I'm going to make a loop and come through, just a slip knot, just like this. Okay, and I'm going to maybe make that loop a little bit smaller. And I'm going to pin it down onto my board. Okay, like this. Okay. Yes, yesterday was our 5-year anniversary. So, yes, 5 fantastic years. So I can't complain at all. I could, but no one would be listening. No, just kidding. Let me see. Let me make sure I've got this count right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think that's right. 2, 4, 6. Yeah, I've got 6 strands. Okay. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to make the lark's head knots for this loop. And the lark's head knots, you guys, are all going to tie on one side of the strand, okay? Which is why the loop sits so nicely and so flat, okay? So I'm going to just do this, okay, and put that over there. So I'm going to come in, and the way I start this lark's head is I just make this loop like the P here, and I'm going over that center strand, and I'm going to tighten up the tension on my center strand a little bit by putting the thread through one of the little grooves on the macrame board and adding a little loop or a little not loop, little spool. That's what it's called. I'm like, what the heck is this? This thread. The spool of thread underneath, so I've got a little tunnel here. And again, I am using the 0.5 millimeter CKC or Chinese knotting cord here. But again, you could go up to 0.8 or down to 0.4. Okay. So again, here's my P, the P under there. I go under the tunnel and up through that loop. And so that's half of the lark's head. Okay. Now to tie the other half, I go under the center strand and then through and up. Okay. And that makes the full lark's head. And Brandon, I'll let you get in really tight on this. Okay, so see how it's a nice,
unfortunately I can't get much.
It's a nice, well, as tight as you can. See how it makes a nice full knot. And it might even be easier for you guys to see it if I put it here, right? There's that full lark's head. So going back and forth on the top, from the top and from the bottom is going to make that full lark's head. So I'm going to go kind of at speed to get this done. So make your loop underneath and up. I'm going to get this out of the way because I feel like I'm going to keep bumping it. And make the loop, go under and up, make the loop over, under and up, make the loop under, then over and up. So that's 3. And you just continue to go back and forth to make these. Now, if you wanted to do our usual poetry flat series of flat square knot loops, you could do that too. That works out just fine. But I thought it would be fun to have another loop at your disposal. And again, with this CKC, you guys, it goes pretty fast. And if you did this in 0.8, holy cow, it would be so much faster. You could do this. You guys have been doing the poetry in the Ceylon. Doing this in the regular Ceylon would also be super pretty. So, you know, just whatever works for you guys, whatever threads you like. You could even, watching last week, I think Tammy Drennan, when she was watching last week, she mentioned using this in a thin leather. You could certainly try the 0.5 millimeter leather on this if you wanted. I don't know if it would be too fragile, but you can certainly try it. Okay, let me put this there so that's tightened down a little bit. So again, keep going with that lark's head over and up, under and up. And you want to make this loop the right size for your button. So I think this is almost the right size. Let me see. So close. I'm going to do one more and then we'll measure it.
Okay, this isn't like the basket stitch, but just changing up and under instead of over?
That's right. So
that was Gita.
Yeah, so all I'm doing here is, here's the loop, and I'm going over and through. And here I make that loop and I put it under the center strand and then over and through. So it's exactly the same. I'm just alternating between over the center and under the center, if that clarifies. Okay, so now let's see how that loop is looking. Now the button I used for this is our button that we call tea leaves. Okay, and it looks like this, and we carry it in some different colors, right? I chose the copper, but you know, any button will do, will work. So I'm going to bring this around, and you can see how nice the loop. I'm going to tighten it up. My tension was just a little funny right there, so I'm going to fix that. There we go. And I'm going to double check to make sure that my button comes through. Okay, and it does. All right. So now this is when I want to show you, when I experimented with this, how things changed up a bit. So I'm going to pin this with just regular sewing pins onto my board, and I'm going to pin it so it's nice and tight so my loop is formed. Can you see that there? And you saw me do that on Friday, on Free Tip Friday. You saw me do that with the regular seal-on when I did this project here, right? It's exactly the same. Okay, so let me get back to this big one here so you can see this. This is where I goofed a little bit, and I didn't do this macrame. I didn't bring them together under some flat macrame like I did here. Here I just went right into the macrame, okay? And can you see how it gives me some strands that are kind of loose here? I could have put some beads up there, maybe if I wanted to start out to kind of cover those loose threads, or maybe I could have just not worried about these loose threads, but here on this big piece, it was kind of big. So I didn't really like this look. So I wanted the loop to come together and really look like a finished loop. Okay, so what I did was I took these outside strands, you can see right here, and I started to do my flat macrame with them. I also wanted to mention here, it looks like I said cut 40 inches of thread. You guys, I think I totally lied to you. I actually would pop that up to 50, and not 40. So you would have those 50 inches and then you double it over, because you can see my 40-inch strand is a little short. So I'm sorry, I misspoke there. You want to cut plenty of thread. You can always add thread into the project, but for this I don't want to have to add thread. Okay, so we want to make sure that it's plenty long. It looks like Lynn just asked that question. How long did I cut the 3 strands? It looks like you just asked that as well, so that's good. So we've got, I'm going to switch back over here. There we go. So there we go. Bear with me here just a second. I'm going to see that I'm making this right. Okay, so now I'm going to come in. Here's my center strands, okay? And I'm going to just do my flat knot with that. So I'm going to start with just my flat macrame, make my Q, over and under. The same knot you've been using for poetry. We have a flat macrame tutorial, and we'll do the opposite side, but see how it brings that together, the loop together. It's not a nice loop. Okay, so it comes and it goes underneath. Okay, and make this neck, I'm calling this the neck, as long as you like. Okay, and I'm going to make it in the sample. I don't know, I did about 2 or 3, so I'm not going to make it super long. I'm also going to show you a trick here, you guys, because if you do cut your threads too short and you're using Chinese knotting cord, there we go. I want to show you. Yeah, Janice is saying that she would cut 60. You could even cut 60 too. It just depends too, you guys, on how big your loop is here and how long you make this section for Trail's End, this Trail's End section. Okay, so it just depends. But 50 to 60 inches will be fine. But see, this guy here, it's kind of short because this is the strand that I did all of the larks heads with. Okay, but you guys have seen me do this before, and I'm going to show you. I'm going to do this again. Hopefully I'm not backing myself into a corner here, but you've seen me splice the CKC using my thread burner, and the way I do that is I'm going to heat up my thread burner here, heat it up, and I'm going to come in. I'm going to heat both of these strands at the same time. It's kind of out of my field of vision here a little bit. But I'm going to come in and splice these together. Let's see if it held. Okay. And now I'm going to pull on it. See that there? It's spliced. Okay. And so I've made it longer. And yeah, Beth is asking, is there enough thread on one spool of CKC? Yes, there's plenty of thread. This in the 0.5 millimeter has 10 yards, so it's plenty. It's plenty. Okay. So you can see I just spliced it on there. It's okay. So I've added my thread. That splice is just going to tie right in. So don't sweat it if it's not quite long enough. Splice a little piece of thread on there. You can do it. You can do it. Okay. Alrighty. So let's get to the tying of the knots. So this knot here that I'm going to tie, this macrame knot, is directional. Okay, and so it's going to tie across all of these threads. So hang with me, okay? Just hang with me and watch what I do. I'm going to explain this as thoroughly as I can. You'll get it, because knotting can be a little funny for some people, right? Because we're thinking directionally. So just stick with me, okay? So I'm going to readjust these pins to keep my loop nice and even. So now I'm going to start tying my knots from the right over to my left. Okay? So the first line, the first cord in line, this is going to be the cord that I tie around. Okay? So this is my number 1 cord in the number 1 position. This is number 2. Let me get my awl. I know the awl is here somewhere. Here's number 2. Here's number 3, number 4, number 5, and number 6. Okay? Now, I take cord number 1, which is over here. I'm going to place a pin. It could be a T-pin or a sewing pin, doesn't matter. I'm going to place a pin right between cords 1 and 2. Okay? That pin is going to help this thread as it comes across. It's going to make a little elbow, a nice little corner turn, and it's going to help this thread turn nice and evenly. Okay? So I've put my pin between cords 1 and 2, and now I'm laying cord number 1 across my other threads. Okay? Just like that. Now I need a little bit of space there, so it doesn't need to go up too high. So I'm going to move cord 6, cord 5. My cords are a little twisted, bear with me here. Cord 5, 4, and 3 over a little bit. We're just going to focus on number 2 here. Okay? So I come in. This is the knot that I tie, and I'm going to tie it twice. And this is what kind of gave me the fits when I was doing this. I couldn't quite understand how to tie this knot. Okay? All I do is I'm holding this knot number 1 in my hand, my left hand. Okay? And I have the thread coming across my finger. With thread number 2, or the second thread in line, I cross it over. Can you see that? Can you see that cross there? This is the thread number 1, this is thread number 2, and I just take that thread and pull it through. Now, as I'm tightening things up, I'm going to actually switch this out for a bigger T-pin so it's not moving around so much. My number 1 knot, the knot that I'm tying these threads around, I pull kind of tight, and it just kind of sits there. You can see that that thread is just kind of sitting there. Okay? I need to repeat this a second time. Okay? So there's my thread. I cross it over my finger and pull it through. Pull that cord that I'm tying around kind of tight and walking it up and down. And then I put this one aside. Okay, let me actually show you. I'm going to actually switch gears for just a second because I want you to see it on this big thread. Okay, it's going to help you guys out a little bit. So I'm just going to pin this down. I know I have more pins. There they are. Thank y'all. I've got some more pins. This is our cord number 1 that we're tying around. See, this one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cords. Okay? So there's my pin. Okay? Here's cord number 2. And here's cord number 1. And you know, I like coloring these cords with my Sharpie marker, so I'm going to make this cord number 1. I'm going to darken it up. This is just my practice with this cotton kitchen twine. Okay, so you can see that. All right. So now I'm going to lay this across. See that? How that is there? Now this one's on my finger. I cross the cord over it and pull it through the loop that's created there. Okay? And pull it up. The way you want to think about the cord that you're tying around, that this guy's just hanging out for a good time, right? It's just hanging out there. It doesn't do any of the work. All right? So now the second cord, I come in here, cross it again, and through. Now watch how when these 2 knots come together, see how they're walking up like this? See how the knot that I'm tying with the cord kind of comes out in the middle. Can you see that? And that just is going to sit right up against there. Okay? So now, let's do this again. See, I'm still using that same cord that I colored black. Same cord number 1 is going to come here. Okay? So I come around, cross it, pull it through when it opens up, And see how it just slides into place. Now I've got to tie. If I tie one, I tie two. So here it comes again. And through. Okay? And then this just ties up here. All right, so now I've tied two. Can you see that? Let's lay this across. Strand number 3. Loop it over, pull it through, pull it tight. All of the pulling is done with the tying thread. Now again, over, pull it through, and tighten. So there's my third strand. And again, see, you know you're doing it correctly because those knots, those loops, are on either side of this tying thread. Does that make sense? So let me bring this around. Stay with me. Hang in there. Okay. So here's this. I am doing, that's right, Ellen is asking, so basically I'm just doing the same thing twice. That is exactly right. So here's one, and going around the thread. There's once, and twice. That's it. And then when you lay this thread down, see how you want to make sure once in a while I get confused and my threads switch up. And I get confused and I think that this thread, the one I should be tying with, is actually the cord I'm tying around, and the loop looks funny. Okay, so you know, well, that's not right. So I undo it and I realize, oh, it's because the thread I'm tying around is not on top, right? See, it's coming on top of all these threads. So I come in, make that loop, tie it around. So you're doing the same thing with each consecutive cord.
I think Kim was suggesting you maybe put a bead at the end of the different beads.
Yeah, you could, yeah.
Or color code it.
To color code it? Yeah, you sure could. Yeah, you could. That would work. Totally work. But I would suggest getting some larger twine like this. This is just kitchen twine. No big deal, right? It's really easy to work with, and you can do your practicing on it. Okay, so there's that whole row right there. Okay, so I'm going to now move it over to our CKC because you've seen it kind of big with this cotton twine. So where we left off before was I had just strung up my cords here. Let me get them back into, so there's my first one. Now this comes along, I get cord number 2. Okay, remember I'm always tying around, so this cord, see I was doing it again, my cord that I'm carrying along, that I'm tying around, always has to be on top. So I come around, bring it through. So there's knot number 1, and the same knot. It's like the knot you do to tie your shoe, right? If I'm tying my sneaker, I bring my threads around. I hold one thread, I bring the other shoelace over the top and through the loop, right? That's exactly the knot here. Okay. So here's my next one. Remember, the one that you're tying around always needs to be sitting on top, and the thread that you're tying with needs to be underneath that thread. Let's do this last one here. On top and over and through and tighten, and again. Okay. So now you can see that all of my little ducks are in a row. I take my pin out, and you can see it's given me a little bit of a thread bubble here. It's because that first knot that I tied, that first one I tied, I had it a little bit out of the way so you guys could see it. Normally, and I'll put it in the right position now, I'll put it like right, like really tight there. So when my thread turns the corner like this, it's a tight, this pin helps it stay in place. Okay, so I'm going to do this again. My thread number 2 now becomes number 1, right? And the one that I tied with becomes the end thread, thread number 6 down here. So with my new number 1, I bring it around, it's on top, and I loop the thread over and through. And see, now I'm really tightening this sucker down. See, that's how tight you want to get it around the pin. It's kind of hard, the pin is in the way. I know it's hard for you guys to see. I'm kind of angle it a little bit, that might be easier. So it's really around there. So if I do it once, I need to do it twice and around. Okay, and tighten. And you just come in and now you tie all of these around that one, once and twice. And when you're doing this, as you start out, see this thread, it just lays on top and it just continues to go down the line. So you just pick up each next thread and scoot it up. And my first attempts on this were not beautiful, right? They weren't gorgeous, but with a little bit of practice with some heavier twine, you'll be able to see your mistakes a lot better. Okay. So now, number 2, that one that I was working with, becomes that last one there, and now I've moved up. So this one was, I think, number 3, the third in line, right? So I'm going to move my pin. See how when it was really tight there, I didn't get that thread bubble? Nice and tight. Okay. So yeah, you can refer, and Jackie's saying to this, you can refer to this number 1 chord as your knotting chord. It's the chord you're knotting around. And you can pin anywhere you like. If you feel like things are moving around for you too much, throw another pin in there. I don't want this to be too pinny because it's kind of hard to see, but you can pin into your board, right, so that it doesn't move around so much. So here's our third row. I'll come in, around, and up, and come in, around, and up. Now if you're having trouble with this, or visualizing this, after the broadcast, I want you to go and I want you to get your tennis shoes, or any shoe where you tie a bow in your shoe, and I want you to put it on. And that first knot that you tie when you're tying a bow, that's the knot that you're making here. Okay? I want you to tie that knot on your shoe. Then I want you to go to your project. Okay? That will help.
It's funny, when you said friendship bracelet, I totally blanked
remember
out
this?
until right now.
Right now, you remember this?
Oh my gosh, it is completely a friendship bracelet.
It is, Bran. It's those same ones we'd made in college.
I think I still have a few.
I know. I think I have them too. I remember Jessica had a whole armful. She was really devoted. She had an armful, as I remember. So let's put another pin in. You can take this pin out, turn the corner. And embroidery floss would be a good thing to start with too. It would be a good practice, or if you have pearl cotton, any good practice thread. If it's your first go round, don't do your first go round with your CKC. Okay? Really do a practice round. I'm sure you have yarn, or if you have kitchen twine or whatever. And if this is your first attempt, yeah, alternate your colors. Make each of the strands a different color, right? It'll help you see the difference. I'm getting a little faster because I want to get to adding on the beads, okay?
Well, I will say, as somebody who's more of a photographer than somebody who works with their hands, I could do this.
Yeah, you could
So
do this.
Anybody can do this.
Yeah. You can. You just need to kind of, just start and watch this vid step by step by step. You'll get it. Okay, so there's our 4th row. Okay, can you count? Let's count here and let's see. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm going to do 5 rows and then I'm going to put my beads on. Okay, because I am looking at this as kind of a 5-strand, right? We're tying 5 knots across. There's 6 strands, but one of the strands is always the cord that we're knotting around. Okay? And so Julie's saying I would call cord number 1 the holding cord and the vertical ones the knotting cords, because those are the ones that are being knotted. Yep, that works too. However you want to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and tie 1 more row, and then we're going to add our beads. Okay, time for our beads. Almost time for our beads. So here we come. That first knot, see, I come in and I tighten it really around the pin. But if you like that little loop that I've got there, place your pin a little further out so that pin holds that loop in place, and then you can be consistent with a bunch of loops on the end. Or if you were adding a charm, I wanted to show you this. I need, do we have a jump? I had jump rings around here somewhere. Let's put a jump ring on this just real quick.
What size would you like?
I don't know, not huge.
You've got,
How's that for specific? 4 mils, that's perfect. Thanks, Bran.
You can pick your color.
Let me show you if I were going to add a charm onto this. Okay, so there's a 4 millimeter. I'm going to go ahead and put this on. Nothing ventured, nothing gained, you guys, right? And if you're trying this with some practice cords, you're not wasting anything. And you'll be surprised at how quickly you jump onto this project. Okay, so I've just used this willow charm that we have here, and I put a jump ring on that willow charm. Now, if I wanted to add a charm onto my piece, I would go ahead and I'd put that charm on my number 1 thread. Okay, because that charm is going to sit in that little loop. Okay, then I'd put my pin in. I really think, you guys, for macrame like this, you're most successful by pinning it. Okay, so if you don't have a macrame board, you might want to get yourself a piece of foam core or cover a piece of cardboard with some felt or something. But pinning, I think, is the easiest. Then, you can try out some other ways of doing it. Kim is saying you can use tape to tape things down, and you definitely could. But you want your piece to be as stable as possible. When I remove the pin, you're going to see how this charm is going to be sitting out there. Okay, so I'm going to quickly tie these across. There was cord number 2. Okay. And this is the basic knot, you guys, that Brittany is going to show you. This is really it. When it comes to macrame, this is pretty much the knot, right? It just is how, it's just how you configure these knots, okay? So you could just come in, we're going to tighten that down. Keep that tension as easy or as even as you can. You can see on like my first, I want to pull it in so you can kind of see my mistakes there. Let me finish tying that up. Can you see how on this one that I started with, this one here? See how my rows are a little wonky? right? They're not as crisp as these rows are coming out. It's because my tension, when I tied the knot, my tension was kind of all over the place. I wasn't tying the knot as tightly as maybe as I should have. So you can see I've got some space in there and stuff, right, like this. So in the big picture, you don't really notice, but as you start to kind of break everything down, you go, oh yeah, there's some space there, there's space there. Don't look too closely, right? You'll start to even things out pretty well the more you practice. So now I'm going to take that pin out where the charm is, and can you see that charm? It's just in there. It's just ready to go. So now this is where I add my beads. Okay, so I used, what a surprise, I used little shadows, all right? But you could use any bead that you liked as long as it fit. Now the little shadows here, I don't put a bead on the first cord because this is the cord that I'm tying around, and I don't put a bead on the last cord, okay, because I want those beads to be captured, there we go, to be captured on the inside row, okay? So I start by putting one on, and what I do here, and it's really will help you with this, I go ahead and I make some self needles on my threads, and this I probably would have done at the beginning, but the time is right here, all right? So I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna give myself a little bit of Zap glue for those needles. Come on, Zap. There we go. And with your Zap, you want to make sure and wipe off the tip so that you don't glue your cap onto your Zap there. Now you can see on my baggie, okay, I'm gonna just come in and I'm gonna kind of fold it over and run these threads through. Yeah, the charm is pretty big. Ginger's commenting that charm looks huge. Well, it's our willow charm. It's kind of big, but I wanted to show you something big so you could actually see it. Plus, I love the willow charm on there. And, you know, completed, it might be a little bit big for this project, but I don't know, if you make it wider, it would work, right? Doesn't, I don't know, whatevs, whatever works for you. But I like willow. I feel like it hasn't gotten any play. See how I still have glue on my bag? I put that cord in there, and then I just run that cord underneath my finger to take away the excess glue. So that's how I put needles on the ends of things. There's still just enough glue in there. Okay. Ginger's saying she's also watching it on the giant TV, which, you know, so of course it's huge. It's the biggest willow charm you've ever seen. I need one more. I need a little bit more glue to do this last one. I use the baggie because I try not to get glue all over my fingers as I'm doing this. Sometimes I'm successful and sometimes I get it all over myself. Like yesterday I was doing this and I must have had glue on my finger and I wiped my face, and so I almost glued my finger to my face, which it's not unusual for me, but I came out of it. I was okay. So now I'm ready. The Zap dries super quickly too, so these ends will be pretty much ready to go. You can see it's nice and stiff like this, okay? And so I am going to go ahead and cut this at an angle. Okay, so it's easy for me to string my beads on. There's my angle cut. And I'll go ahead with that shadow and slide it on. Now I can do all of these right now, okay? I could just come in, I'll clip it at that angle, put that bead on. And sometimes I like to do that just to make sure that all of the beads are sitting together kind of nicely. This one I didn't angle cut, but it'll go on okay. Now there are so many beads, and I'm going to tie these across, and then I want to show you a couple of other beads that I might use for this. Okay, slide this up. So now all my beads are on. Alrighty. So those slide up. Now remember the thread that I'm tying, let's get up there, that I'm tying around. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to put my T-pin kind of under that bead, so the bead is kind of held in place like that. Now I'm pulling my bead that my thread that I'm tying around over, right? So it's in position. Now I take my number 2 thread there, maybe easier said than done, and I just make that knot. There we go. And see how I come in, I tighten it, and my knot is just underneath that bead, but it's not so tight that the bead is kind of skewing out of place, but tight enough that it looks visually tight. Okay, so here's this. Come around, loop it through, and up. Okay, so that's the first one. Here's my second. Around. And you kind of have to control everything, right? You're the boss of this macrame. I'm going to turn that shadow a little bit. If you don't have an awl, this macrame and awl kind of go hand in hand. Right, so get yourself an awl. It'll help you move things around a little bit better. There we go. There's number 2. Here's my third bead. Push it up into place. Bring this around. See how there's a little bit of space up there? So get your awl, move that bead into position, and then tighten it up. Okay? Hold this and around and tighten and through. So there's my, see that I didn't push the bead up in place, so it's giving me a little sass. So get that awl, put that bead where it belongs, and tighten up. Now with the last cord, I'm just going to come in and see how that last unbeaded strand kind of frames the bead. Okay, so that's it. There are my beads in there. Now, use any pattern you want, right? I put beads every 5 across here, but we could add another set of beads, and I have some beads. I haven't even used them yet, you guys, so we're just going to test these out to see if they work. I got some O beads because I love them. I love, 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 love the O beads. They're just gorgeous. So I grabbed some of those. We have like our, what do I want to say, aged check beads and our special striped check beads and stuff. I grabbed the aged brick AB glow. I love those too. Those would look great. 2mm beads, Ginger, I don't think will fit on the 0.5 CKC. I don't think they will. But they might on the 4, maybe. I'd have to check it. But you can do, like, let's say that we wanted to make some beads on here, string some beads on here, that were a little more like this. Okay, so it was a little more bead forward, I guess, maybe. So let's string some beads on here. We're not going to string them on the outer one, and we're not going to string them on this other outer one. So we're going to work with these 4 threads for beads. So I don't know. I'm going to make a little stack, and I'm going to see if this works. There's two. I'm just going to put these on and then we're going to look at it. This is where I'm just going for it. And here's this. Let's see how it looks, because I've had these in my mind. Oh, yeah, that's not bad. Let me see. It's kind of big, right? So this is, I'm just thinking out loud here. It's kind of big, so I don't want these two stripes to be right next to each other or they'll push each other out. So maybe I want to have this bead up there like that. So let me put on a shadow. Just stick with me. This is how I do it. This is how I design it. Let me put on this AB Glow. I'm going to check and see visually how it fits. I like it, but it's still like maybe making this push out a little. So maybe what I want to do is I'm going to take these guys off real quick and I'm going to put them in the center. Maybe I'll do this one over here so it's not on the edge. And maybe I'll just put, maybe I'll flank them with this. I don't know.
Can you do something where you just knot them around it?
I could. I mean, I could. I think, though, that I need to have beads go all the way across to kind of fill it in. Let me get, where is this guy? Once you have this pattern, though, you know, and it's like what Janice calls laning, right? You're filling in the lane of the bead to see how it sits next to the other one. That's exactly what I'm doing here, okay? So this guy and this guy, I think they fit pretty well next to each other, like that. And then I think maybe I'll repeat that pattern. Let's see what it looks like. But look at that AB striped glow, right? It's just delish. And I think these O beads, what am I using? I'm using the Crystal Cerulean Blue. Just saying that kind of makes my blood pressure go down, right? Janice is asking, can you grab a tube of the 11-aught metal seed beads and see if they fit? Yeah, and we'll check them to see if they fit on this. Brandon will grab them, and I will continue
the
to
metal?
String the metal ones. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see if these are all even on here too. Which I think this will work. Let me do my last one. And let's see. This gives it a whole new personality. Look. See that? I mean, it's all of a sudden we've graduated. We've graduated from the 8th grade to high school, or from high school to college, or I don't know, something. We've kind of elevated. Oh yeah, great. Thanks, Bran. I'll check them in a minute. So I did 2 of these, and then I did 3 more shadows. I do need to cut this taper into the side. I didn't do it for this, and it's given me a little bit of grief. There we go. And 3. Alrighty. So now, this is where pinning, so see, I kind of push everything. It kind of makes everything kind of push out, which is good. I think that looks good. Now I'm going to knot. I'm going to come around and I'm going to start my knotting with strand number 1. So this is where pinning becomes a thing. So I'm going to kind of tighten everything up here, make sure everything's sitting right. I think that's going to be okay. Let me see. These are they're a little loosey, actually. So I'm going to take off. If we're going to do it, we might as well do it right, right? So, can you tell I didn't practice this beforehand? I'm just making this up as we go along. That's okay. There we go. Let's see, that one. Yeah, see that? That sits a lot nicer like that. So we need to take, there are 2 extra shadows that have got to go. So those go. Notice how when I do this fast, right, I pull it out. I take that one out, and then I just hold them between my fingers. There we go. My mom is watching his wind patch. I see you, Ma. You can't hide behind your wind patch persona. I am making it all fancy. That's right. So now, let's go ahead and pin, okay? I'm going to push that one up. It's about where it's going to sit. I'm going to put my pin there, and that pin is going to help me turn the corner. Okay, I'm going to ignore these other guys for the moment. I'm going to put them to the side a little bit. So this comes in. I'm going to come in and I'm just going to tie my thread, right? And you could do bead wise here. You could do it however you wanted it, however you wanted to do this pattern. I'm doing this pattern on the fly, so I might, if I were doing this in real life and not in demo time, I would play around with it. You could string beads on every other strand. That's a great solution. Whatever works. I'm just going to go ahead and, whoops, this one goes over. I'm just going to go ahead and tighten and knot these up because we have to eventually move forward with it. But you can see how it will look, and then you can decide what works for you there. But leaving an empty strand also in between would also be fine. That actually is maybe what I might do in real life. That one goes over. I keep wanting to put my tying around thread under, but it needs to go over the top. There we go. See, push these beads into place. These want to displace each other just a little bit, so it might not be the right choice, those 2 beads next to each other, but you guys will see what I mean. Okay. There we go. And so that one ties, and now this, which is why it's fun to have a practice go, right? A practice strand where, yep, see, these are pooching each other out too much, I think. These 2 guys here, these big ones. It's not quite working for me. So just to unknot them, let's just unknot them then. That's all right. I use my pin or my, so you just kind of have to pick it out. Have the courage of your convictions. It's okay. You kind of have to stab at it a little bit with your pin. And you want to aim for right where those 2 knots, those 2 loops sit next to each other. If you can pick that one out like that, then the other one will follow. Let me do that here. Stab at it a little bit with that pin, super satisfying. And
very similar to getting knots out of jewelry, too.
Right, exactly. There we go. So those are done. So again, it's that one strand. So I'm going to take these out. I'm going to take those off. And I'm going to go every other one. Let's see, Rena's saying you can make a herringbone pattern, then string beads on threads, and then make an upside down herringbone to continue. Yes, that's kind of what I was doing with this guy a little bit, this one over here. But we'll save that for a more advanced day. There we go. Get all those on there. Alrighty. That's a little bit better. And again, I'm going to come in and I'm going to quickly knot these across. See if that fits any nicer. I like the plain strand around the sides. And again, you don't want to get too tight either. I think my tension might have been just a hair too tight with this. So I'm being a little bit of a gentler touch with this one. Okay. And then we'll do this guy. And however this comes out, I'm just going to continue on. And I can play around with this a little bit more later. And this guy here. And tighten it down. Okay, let me open that up. And again, it's not quite what I'm looking for, but it's close. It's close, right? I'm just going to tie another plain row to kind of pull ourselves back into order here. And the lengths, the number of beads that I put on might have been a little long, right? I like Janice's idea of putting 2 strands together and stringing the beads on. There's all kinds of stuff that you can do. But see how as I'm knotting, everything is kind of coming back into place here. But I know you guys in a heartbeat are going to come up with some really cool ways of adding more beads into your piece. And let me tell you, the more beads that you add into your design, the more room you're going to need, or the more length of thread you're going to need, because more beads take up more space. Okay, so I would go ahead and start cutting that 60 inches and doubling it over, 70 inches, doubling it over. You need a lot more thread for that, okay? But it is kind of cool. It kind of comes together, right? And you'll continue on. Now, I wanted to show you, I'm going to do a couple more rows, and then I want to show you how to close this off because, oh my gosh, it's noon already. I got really into tying these knots or adding these beads, didn't I? So I'm sorry. I know this is running a little bit long, so let me just bring this to a close, okay? Let me tie one more row and then I'll do a tiny closure. Janice was laughing last week at the tiny loop that I made. Well, we're going to make another tiny loop, Janice, so you better get ready because it's tiny loop time. And I agree, I think that looks a little bit bulky, but you'll play around with your bead placement. That one was totally off the fly there. So we just, I just wanted to show you how you might, how you might add some beads on there, and I had these on. That's what happens when I deviate from the formula.
Can I ask one question
Sure.
about doing it? Can you do it where you maybe split it? Maybe you have an odd number, so you have the beads in the middle, and then just do a little knot up around it, so it's surrounded by the knot?
Yeah, I think you probably
I
could.
think that would look pretty cool.
Yeah, I think you could.
And you could have a nice little string of beads right down the middle.
Right down the center. That would look good. So there's all kinds of ways that you can kind of play around with this for sure. Okay.
I want to try that now.
And so, all right. So, so now to close it off, you've made all of your stuff, right? You've done your whole bracelet, and the one that I've done just has 5 plain rows, 1 shadow row, 5 plain rows, 1 shadow row. Okay. So now we're getting to this point where I've finished everything off. Now I had a spare one of these around, Brandon. Did you run across it? A spare trail's end that was finished. It may have not made it here. I want to show you guys, before I tie these knots, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make this guy. Now you could use any leather from this, okay? This is 1 millimeter that I'm using here. I've also used 1.5 millimeter. You could use 2.0. Doesn't matter. You know, if you have leather at home that you like using, whatever works for you. But what I did, oh, and Janice, you did want to try the 11/0. I will. Thank you for reminding me. Let me go ahead and tie this, and then I'll add that 11/0. And then try a button, whatever button it is that you like, okay? And so I'm going to string on the button. And you can see this figure 8, or what Janice uses as her trail's end closure, right? You can make this closure as long as you want. So let's say that I wanted just a smaller piece of macrame and a larger piece of cord on here. I could make this section a little bit longer. It just depends on how much loop you make or how long you make this, okay? So I silk wrapped with leftover Chinese knotting cord. Okay, so I have a piece here. Nope, I have a piece here. There it is. So I got my little piece of Chinese knotting cord, made my figure 8. I'm making this kind of big so you guys can see it. And essentially all I did was, just like with a regular silk wrap, and we have a tutorial on it, a skill builder on beadshop.com. But I've just taken a length, looped it around, and now with this long length, I'm going to start wrapping. And I wrap around everything, all of the leather and the extra cord. And I'm just going to continue to wrap. And I make this wrap, I don't know, as long as you want it to be as well. Longer if you want more cord to show. I want this wrap section to be a little bit longer, maybe, so I'm going to wrap a little bit more. Also, with this point, or this 1 millimeter leather, I could have used, like, strung a few beads on here too. Would have looked good. I don't know, whatever. You do what speaks to you. Janice is saying don't skimp on this wrapping cord. This is about 12 inches, right? Or at least. You need a lot to really get it on there. Now I'm pulling, you can see underneath to end it, I put the wrapping cord through that loop and I come in back to the other side and I start to pull this cord down. Makes that loop smaller and smaller. I'm going to try and move my fingers here. That loop smaller and smaller until it pops underneath the wrapping. I kind of need to hold it here to pop it underneath. There we go. And then you need to straighten it out just a little bit, but as long as it's under there, you want it nice and firm but not so tight that it distorts. And I'm going to get a little closer to me. Sorry, I'm taking it out of frame. There we go. There it is. And now I'm going to clip all of these extras away. Okay, so here, clip both of these, or thread burn the CKC away, but you definitely need to clip away the leather. You don't want to thread burn the leather. Okay, so there is my piece, and you can see it's a lot longer than the other one, but I made it big so you guys can see it. Okay, and again, putting some beads on here might be kind of cool. Might be a cool way to embellish this loop a little bit if you're using thinner leather. Okay, so now let me try that 11/0 to just get, so here's the 11/0 JP. The hole's kind of big. I'm gonna really angle cut this sucker. Yep, it goes on. There you go. So the 11/0 will go on the 0.5 CKC, especially with a self needle made with the zap glue. So now back to the tiny loop, Janice. So get ready here. What we're going to do is we're just going to bring all of these cords together and we're going to macrame them up. Now what I did, and this was a little nod from Allie Morey, okay? This is what Allie taught me, is that I'm not starting my macrame right at the end here, okay? I'm giving myself a little bit of room. So see how I put pins there? And now I start my flat macrame knots, my flat square knots. And you're going to see, this will all make sense in a second, so just bear with me here. So see how I have some plain space? Okay. Do you know why I have that plain space there? Well, if you don't, I'm going to tell you. I've got that plain space going on there because I want to make sure it's all even here. I'm going to come back around with my loop, and I've made this also intentionally really big. Do you see how on my real piece I would have made it actually quite a bit smaller? My pins would have been way down here, okay, like this, because I don't want to have to macrame too much. But that leaves space for after I've turned my looped my loop around. And Janice, this is going to be one heck of a tiny loop, but I'm going to do these here, so bear with me, because this is a real aha moment, I think, for you guys. I need to tighten
Janice,
this
the
up.
light bulb just went off. This is brilliant.
Yeah, right, right. You with me? You with me? Everybody with me? If you're not, the light bulb will go off for you in a second. But this shaves some of the bulk off here. And we make these macrame loops so often. It's really a staple in our bead shop design arsenal. There we go. I'm going to just keep going. I'm going to do just a few more again. The loop is going to be tiny. But that's okay. I know Janice could use a good laugh, so. Okay. Let me do one more set here. So now, when I bring this around, I'm going to use my clasp, my loop, my button, whatever it is. You don't have to have it like this, right? You could just put your button on. But I'm going to take all this stuff off. Okay. Now I'm going to put on my closure. This could also be a jump ring if this were just going to be a section in a wrap bracelet. Right? This is how you would just connect. So here comes the loop, Janice. It's a tiny loop. There it is, the tiny loop. Now I'm going to set all of that down. And again, this neck would be a lot shorter, but I wanted to make it big so you guys could see that. I am pinning that tiny loop. What did she do, Janice? So funny. Here we go.
She's ready.
She's ready. So see how I'm just, if I can get my pin in there. That's kind of a dull pin. There we go. So see, it's holding that loop in place. Now I take my end strands, this one and this one, and it's the back of the piece that's facing me here, you guys. The back of the piece. Now I'm just going to macrame, though I need to get everything nice and tight so that I've got the tension here. Okay. So now I take these, can you see how the threads are coming back down here? And I do my flat knot around all of this. Charm, bulky bead section, and all. I'm also gonna pin this down a little bit to keep it from being too unruly. So there we go. There's that first knot. And so all of these strands are not overly bulky. I'm gonna have to unpin this, I think. But I needed it pinned just for that first one. So see there? Now there's my second knot around. Whoops, nope, that wasn't my second knot around. I didn't go through the loop. If I had had macrame on this, it would have been a little too bulky, right? But since it's plain strands, it's not too bulky. There we go. Getting into a rhythm here. Okay. And when I take this off, we'll examine it here in just a second. As I get closer to finishing this piece off, getting my knots and everything done, I'm going to anticipate where I'm stopping, and I'm going to add a little bit of glue here. Okay, so I'm going to get my hypo cement. I'm going to add just a touch of glue here, lay this back down, and macrame over that glue. Just a touch, that wasn't much. Okay, tighten. And again, this is just an extension of our poetry project, you guys. It's just the same. Something's going down over here. I don't know if you guys can hear all the sirens, but we're fine in here. At least I think we are, so we'll see. But there's always something happening. So I'm going to come in there we go. I'm going to do one last one. Now before I tighten here, before I tighten everything, I'm going to do one last dollop of glue on either end and tighten, just like that. Now, if this were real jewelry time, real jewelry making time, I would let this connection cure 24 hours. Okay? I would let it sit, really let the thread sit, and then I would come in, really bond over, and then I'd come in with my thread burner and I would burn my thread away. Janice is saying that someone had a meltdown over a tiny loop, over the tiny loop, and started a fire. It's so true, JP. The tiny loop is wreaking havoc right and left. The tiny loop with the long neck. I'll thread burn this. There it goes. I'm going to tap, have the thread burner on and tap that end so it's nice and clean. Now, what I did, what you can do is you can just get rid of these ends. You can just thread burn them off. But what I did instead was I left little dangles. So you could, all I did, the way I did that was I just got some little shadows or whatever it is that you wanted to do. Right, I put those guys on and I just kind of arbitrarily tied them. I just did a loop. I actually did 2 loops, I think. Once and then twice. slid that loop down. You can use your awl to kind of help you where you want it to go. Made sure that looked about right. Tighten it up. And then I left a little tiny bit of tail and burned it away. Like that. Okay, and I did that across all of them. And that's it. Here is this really crazy hack of a sample, but it does incorporate all of kind of the random things that I've had to show you, tiny loop and all. Okay, but you can see how it looks in the real nice world. Turn that around. Okay, so that is all she wrote. That's it. Okay, so there it is. That's it. And I'd show you before we signed off, I wanted to show you the inside of my ring here. It has, these are what are known as wartime pennies here from 1943 when they stopped making copper pennies in the US, and they made steel, pennies out of steel for the World War II effort. So there's a little one peeking out of a window in my ring. So I always like to make the backs of my rings as interesting as the front. So there's the little secret right there. Okay. And yeah, Beth is saying it's a bracelet only a mother would love. And Beth, you are so right. Okay. And yeah, the closure is longer than the bracelet. It's just incredible. But it is a good, again, we'll put Alfie in this, a bracelet only a mother could love. But you can see all of the techniques here that translate to this one. A lot of skills going on for this. And again, we'll pass Brittany's wonderful cuff, her West County cuff. We'll pass it one more time underneath the camera. I'm really excited for you guys to see this next week. I'll be really honest. This one, the West County, is one that I have not attempted yet because it really intimidates me, this piece. So I don't know why. I mean, you know, this is just one thing that I haven't made yet. So I'm super excited to have Brittany come and share this project with you guys next week. I'm going to be learning right along with you, right? I'm super excited about that. So West County Cuff is coming up next week with the wonderful Brittany Ketchum. So I'm really excited to have her here next week. Okay, so that's our story. So I guess, Brandon, we can move this connection back and just call it a day today, right? There we go. So I hope you guys enjoyed yourselves. I sure did. But it's going to be a great, I really recommend that you just practice your, here, not that one, this guy right up here, I think. That you guys just practice, I can't quite, yeah, it's that one. That you guys practice your knotting skills. I know I tightened it up really, really well. Sorry, we're having trouble moving that camera back because, yeah, I super tightened it. And both Brandon and I are like, wait a minute. No, here, hang on. There it goes. All right. The camera doesn't want to move that way.
Look at me, I'm sure.
There we go.
All right.
There we go. I know, we're going all over the place. There we go. Oh, thank goodness. I think we're back. So practice those knots. Again, use a, get some practice cord. This is just regular kitchen twine. And I did kind of this crazy 70s kind of looking practice work with this, okay? With this guy here. So a little bit of practicing with these guys and you will be you'll be in good shape. So I hope, sorry, I know that we're looking back on the replay and it's like, oh my God, we were all over the place. So sorry about that. What Well, and tomorrow is Independence Day here in the U.S., so we will actually be taking a break tomorrow. So everybody put your feet up on the coffee table and barbecue and have a great mid-summer break. For the rest of you, our bead table members all around the world, happy Thursday tomorrow. But we are going to traditionally, we barbecue here in the States. We think about our freedoms here in the States, and we watch some fireworks as well. So it's going to be a great, hopefully a great break for us. We'll be back on Friday. I'll be back on Friday with Free Tip Friday for you guys. And we're sliding right through July. So thank you so much for joining me. And of course, as always, today it's the 3rd of July if you're watching this live. And if you got your newsletter this morning, and if you haven't, I strongly recommend that you sign up for our newsletter right on beadshop.com. All of our Chinese knotting cord, in honor of this micro macrame extravaganza, all of the CKC, we've knocked it down today 30% off. So if you put Chinese knotting cord in your order, and in the coupon box, the discount code is CKC30. It'll knock 30% out of all the CKC in your basket. And again, that sale is good today, 7/3/2019, and it ends at midnight Pacific time. Again, if you're watching this on the replay, I'm sorry the code isn't valid, but go to beadshop.com and sign up for our newsletter, and you'll get all kinds of fun stuff that way. All right, my darlings, have a great rest of your day. I'll see you Friday for Free Tip Friday, and go out, micro macrame, be creative. Talk to you guys soon. Thanks a lot.